Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Maen Hudson 38 GMT. This watch is available from maenwatches.com for €999. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is protected by this black cardboard outer sleeve. One removes the sleeve, and this is the watch box itself. One removes the lid, pulls down the flap, and as you can see, the watch comes in this PU leather travel roll embossed with Maen, flawless stitching around the perimeter to a high standard, good quality PU leather, two metal poppers securing the flap, and there are also two other metal poppers either side of the padded pillow cushion in the base. The padded pillow cushion is upholstered with a velour fabric to a very good standard. So Maen deserve credit because this is a very well executed presentation, and they could have opted for a lower cost cardboard or plastic watch box rather than this PU leather travel roll, but it actually snaps together very well, and I think more brands should use this. Bearing in mind it's a mid-tier price point piece at €1,000, this is a good quality presentation. In the base we also have a drawer which one withdraws, and I'll show you which the items that come inside that drawer. We also get this thank you card from Maen Watches, and it details their Instagram at Maen Watches. And one also gets two plastic cards. On the reverse, this one details that this is a certified Swiss-made piece. So Maen Watches are a microbrand based in Stockholm in Sweden, but they manufacture their watches in La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland. So the movement is regulated in La Chaux-de-Fonds, and also the watch is assembled in La Chaux-de-Fonds, and the quality control also takes place there. So although they are a Swedish microbrand, their watches really are made in Switzerland. One also gets this plastic card, and on the reverse it has a link to download the manual, and this is innovative, and I think they deserve credit for this because rather than printing out a paper booklet, they've actually included a link and one can simply download the manual if needed. They also include the email address support@maenwatches.com if you have any inquiries regarding your watch. So the watch is covered by a 2-year international warranty, which again they deserve credit for. Usually at this price point within the mid-tier, €1,000, one would expect a 12-month international warranty. So to get 2 years of warranty is excellent. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Maen Hudson 38 GMT. So the watch is based upon the Hudson 38 case, the Mark IV version, but they have refined the case and also refined the bezel in this Hudson 38 GMT version. So with regards to dimensions, we have a 38mm case diameter, we have a 46.4mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 12.3mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push clasp, and as you can see the 2-button push clasp is signed to high standard with the Maen logo. Flawless mirror polishing to the large bevel machined to the flanks and also the edge. No sharp edges, no sharp corners, and they've made the correct decision by using 4 micro adjustment holes. I'm often critical in my reviews of brands only having 2 or 3 micro adjustment holes. 4 micro adjustment holes is optimum because it makes sizing the bracelet to the correct length easy. Flawless brushed satin finishing to the top side and also the flanks, and I really like the large mirror polished bevel on the edge which marks the transition between the body and the flanks. Absolutely finished to perfection. Good foam resistance to the 2-button push triggers, and the interior is solid milled 316L grade stainless steel. Beautiful lustre to the interior of the clasp, no sharp edges. The hinge pins are tight, and also it's very well finished. No sharp corners or edges, and I really like the lustre. It snaps shut with a nice positive click, and I really like the finishing of the 2 pushers, no sharp edges to them, and I like the firm resistance. So this is an example to other brands of how to get it correct. Nice heavy gauge to the 316L grade stainless steel. It's a high quality clasp. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside. The clear AR coating does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the mirror polished hands. Now Maen deserve full credit with the handset because this is some of the best handset finishing I've seen. It's rather like the quality of finishing one sees on a Grand Seiko piece. I've previously reviewed 2 Grand Seiko watches, and I can tell you the quality of the mirror polishing on Grand Seiko hands far exceeds Rolex and Omega, for example, and this is the kind of mirror polishing one sees with high tier pieces costing in excess of €10,000. This is a €1,000 mid-tier piece, and really the quality of the finishing to the handset is exceptional. The proportions of the hands are good, and also the design of the hands is unique to Maen. They've come up with an original design, and again they deserve credit for not just using the default option of baton hands, or alternatively pencil hands or Mercedes hands, which many micro brands do. Now the dial has a textured finish, it's matte black, but it's sandblasted, and again this is unusual. The textured finish of the sandblasted dial adds interest to it. I like the symmetry of the applied indices. They have a nice 3D effect and are infilled with X1 Superluminova, as are the mirror polished hands. They've made the correct decision by citing the date complication at 6 o'clock. However, I think the aesthetic of the piece could be improved if they used a black date wheel with white Arabic numerals rather than using a white date wheel with black Arabic numerals. But having said that, the proportion of the date is good at 6 o'clock and it is clearly legible. The GMT hour hand has a contrasting red tip arrowhead to it, so it's easy to differentiate from the hour hand, and I like the symmetry and the textured dial. Quality of the printing to the logo is very good. They've raised the Maen logo, and that works very well because the Maen logo is printed on a smooth portion to the dial, and it's raised above the textured finish. Often with textured dials, it's a problem printing the text in white because of the textured finish. It's hard to apply the paint, but they've made the correct decision by making a rectangle which is raised. Quality of the printing at the 6 o'clock position is very high definition, and also the quality of the printing of the minute ticks on the chaptering is very good. I like the contrasting red Arabic numerals, but I think they should have used red Arabic numerals on all of the Arabic numerals on the chaptering rather than using a mixture of grey and also red. The red does actually look very nice. It does complement the contrasting red arrowhead second hand. So legibility is good, proportions of the indices and the handset are also good, and the sandblasted textured dial adds interest. With regards to the bezel, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, brushed satin finish to the bezel insert, and the Arabic numerals are well proportioned, as are the hour markers, and we have a black triangle at 12 o'clock. Now understand with this Hudson 38 GMT, they have refined the bezel versus the Hudson Mark IV, which this is based upon. They've improved the quality of the finishing to the bezel, and this is immediately apparent because one can see the mirror polishing is done to a very high standard. With regards to refinements, this is a level above San Martin. For example, this looks similar to the gear tooth profile bezel used on the San Martin SN004G, which you'll be familiar with. But if you look at the quality of the refinement, the finishing to the gear tooth on the bezel, you can see that it is better. We don't have any sharp edges or sharp points to the teeth. It is very grippy and tactile, but the quality of the mirror polishing and the brushed satin finishing is done to a higher level. This is more like a Tudor Black Bay 58. That is the level of finishing we're looking at. So let's test the bezel execution. Now, strictly speaking, as this is a GMT, it really should have a bidirectional rotating bezel, but the Hudson 38 GMT is based upon the Hudson Mark IV, so therefore it has the same 120 click unidirectional bezel as one would expect with a dive piece. Nice medium resistance, it doesn't feel too tight or too loose. It feels lighter than a Steinhardt Ocean 139, and it feels heavier than a San Martin SN004G, which you may be familiar with, and I like the medium resistance. No lateral side-side play whatsoever, no back play whatsoever. So although it's medium resistance, not a tight resistance, a heavy resistance like the Ocean 139, it feels tight. Nice loud audible clicks. And it does feel even all the way through the 360 degrees, so it's a very well executed bezel. They've got the resistance just right, just the right balance between medium and firm. Lighter than an Ocean 139, which is too heavy. The resistance is too tight. So 120 clicks, let's just check the alignment. Perfect. The black triangle aligns perfectly with the double applied indices at 12 o'clock. So no lateral side-side play, no back play, medium resistance, and perfect 10 out of 10 alignment. Again, this is an example to other micro brands of how to get bezel execution correct. With regards to the crown, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, mirror polished domed cap, and as you can see we have the Maen M in Garamond font, which is engraved to a high standard. The mirror polishing is very good, and the quality of the machining on the coin edge finishing is also done to a very high standard. Now, a notable enhancement of this Hudson 38 GMT is that it has 300 metres of water resistance as per the Mark IV Hudson, so they have upgraded the water resistance of the Hudson range, and 300 metres is a very strong specification. One would usually expect 100 metres with a GMT piece or 200 metres with a dive piece. At this price point, 300 metres is very strong for a GMT piece. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Absolutely silky smooth. This is 10 out of 10. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. To put this into perspective, this is superior screw down crown execution to a San Martin SN004G, and it feels very close to a Rolex twin lock or Rolex trip lock crown in terms of smoothness. There's no discernible difference in the smoothness between this and a Tudor Black Bay 58. That is the level of quality we're looking at. So in the first position, one can manually wind this Soprod caliber C125 automatic to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Absolute pleasure to manually wind the mainspring. One can feel the tension gradually building up in the caliber C125, so it manually winds very smooth. It's smoother to manually wind than an SW200-1 or alternatively an SW330, which you might be familiar with. And they've made the correct decision by using the Soprod C125 because the architecture is very similar to the ETA 2893-2, and therefore it has very smooth manual winding. Absolute pleasure to manually wind. Pulling it out to the first click position is the date complication and also the GMT hour hand position. So I'm just going to pull it out to the second click position to move the minute hand out of the way, and then you can see the date complication and the hour hand more clearly. So, like the NH34A, the date complication and hour hand are driven, so therefore the hour hand is driven off the date complication. Rotating the crown clockwise in the first click position advances the GMT hour hand. It has a quick set complication, as you can see. One can cycle through the 24 hours. One can also rotate the crown anti-clockwise in the first click position, and we're now in the date complication setting position. Nice light resistance to it. It clicks over with a nice positive click, which feels very similar to Solita movements such as the SW200-1 and the SW330, for example. It's got that characteristic light clicking. So it feels very similar. The Soprod caliber C125 feels very similar to the ETA 2893-2 and also the Solita SW330. So quick set complication works well, and rotating the crown clockwise advances the GMT hour hand. So nice smooth resistance to it, and I really like it. It's easy to set the hour precisely. It clicks with a nice index click on every hour, so you can easily select the correct hour when setting the GMT hour hand. Absolute pleasure to set it. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position. And if you look closely at the second hand, you can see the caliber C125 has hacking. I've now hacked the movements and stopped the second hand dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second. Nice light resistance to the caliber C125. Again, it feels very similar to the Solita SW330 or alternatively the ETA 2893-2. So I like the light resistance to the gearing, no friction whatsoever, and no backplay clockwise and anti-clockwise. It feels silky smooth, and I really like the fact that there's immediate response. When one rotates the crown clockwise or anti-clockwise, the minute hand immediately begins to move. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. So let's test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup. This is exactly the same screw down crown execution. In terms of quality, in terms of the smoothness, it feels exactly the same as a Black Bay GMT, which I've previously reviewed. Alternatively a Black Bay 58, which I've also previously reviewed. It is silky smooth. This is Tudor Black Bay level, and bear in mind we're not looking at a €3,000 piece like the Black Bay 58. This is €1,000, so it is outstanding. So I'll show you the case back. Longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the centre section, which is sterile, but that contrasts with the mirror polished circumference, and it's also coin edge finished. Very similar to a Black Bay or Black Bay GMT case back, because we have that sterile centre section but mirror polished circumference. The coin edge finishing is very good. Very low profile, bearing in mind it is 300 metres. This is the kind of flat case back one would expect with 100 metres of water resistance. To get 300 metres of hermetic seal with a solid stainless steel case back like this, it Doesn't have a bubble back, which is a pleasant surprise. It's a flat, low profile case back, so it's very good, bearing in mind that this is 12.3mm thick, which is very thin for a GMT complication piece. Quality of the engraving is outstanding. The quality of the mirror polishing, the coin edge teeth are also done to perfection. The concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the outer section of it is good. The milled slots don't have any sharp edges. It's a very well executed case back. Exactly the same quality level as a Rolex case back, or alternatively a Tudor case back. That is the quality of finishing we're looking at. The female pivoted end links are well machined, no sharp edges, and they are finished to a very high standard. Underside to the case is also good, no sharp tips to the tips of the lugs. The underside to the undercut of the case doesn't have any sharp edges. Brush satin finishing is also done to a high standard. Now, unfortunately, I can't do a wrist shot because the bracelet has been sized too tight for my 8-inch wrist, and this would need an additional 2 or 3 links in order for me to do a wrist shot. But let's look closely at the bracelet. Female pivoted end links. Now, Maen deserve credit because they've made the correct decision, bearing in mind this has a 46.4mm lug to lug. By not using male end links, they've used female pivoted end links, which articulate very smoothly. In terms of refinement, the smoothness of the female pivoted end links exactly the same as on a Tudor Black Bay 58. This is better finished than the San Martin SN004G, and one gets this kind of extra refinement with mid-tier pieces costing €1,000. They just feel silky smooth. The end links are a good tight fit to the case. The profile of the end links perfectly match the tips of the lugs, as you can see, and the quality of the finishing to the end links really is Tudor Black Bay level. With regards to the links themselves, they are brushed satin finish and mirror polished to perfection. Beautiful luster to the 316L grade stainless steel, and that complements the brushed satin finishing to the flanks. Maen have made the correct decision by using screw pins in the bracelet versus using the cross-cutting measure of push pins. The links articulate very smoothly. I'll just check the other side. Absolutely silky smooth. Again, this is the level of refinement we're looking at. This is Tudor Black Bay level. This is the kind of articulation one would expect with a Rolex piece costing €10,000, alternatively a Black Bay costing €3,000. Absolutely silky smooth, but the links don't kink. They don't rattle, there's no additional play, and this is what we're paying for here at €1,000. It clearly is more refined than a San Martin SN004G. Just absolutely silky smooth. No discernible difference in the quality of finishing between this and a Black Bay 58. No sharp edges to the flanks and no gaps, so it doesn't pull arm hair. And I really like the smooth articulation and the luster to the brushed satin finishing, and the mirror polishing is also perfection personified. So excellent clasp and also excellent bracelet. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge this up to the absolute peak. Right, so as you can see, the lume has not disappointed. This is X1 Super Lume Nova. Now, this is a pleasant surprise. One would usually expect to see BGW9 or alternatively C3 Super Lume Nova. X1 does look similar to C3. It does have a green tone, although X1 is brighter. Now, I do think there is room for improvement with regards to the hands. I think that they could apply more layers or alternatively enlarge the proportions of the hands, making them wider, and therefore they could apply more layers or deeper layers of X1 Super Lume Nova, because I think the performance on the baton hands is okay, but there is room for improvement. With regards to the applied indices, I like the symmetry, the proportions are good, and the arrowhead tip to the GMT arrowhand is also well proportioned. It is glowing brightly and it will continue to glow for a good length of time, as one would expect with X1 Super Lume Nova. But looking at the handset, although they are well proportioned, I think there is room for improvement with the hands. The colour tone match is good. On the applied indices and also the hands, they have the same green tone to the X1 Super Lume Nova, but I just think the hands could glow brighter if they had more layers. 5 to 6 layers would be optimum. The indices are good enough. I just think the hands need improvement. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So this uses the Soprod caliber C125 automatic, which is a GMT. It has 25 joules, it runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications, and also quick set date complication, which I've demonstrated. So the GMT hour hand runs off the date complication. In the first click position, one can set the GMT hour hand with a quick set complication and also set the quick set date. So very easy to use, very functional. Bidirectional, so therefore it's efficient. It's more efficient than a unidirectional winding movement. The rotor can spin clockwise and anti-clockwise and wind the movement to its maximum 42 hours. 42 hours is perfectly acceptable. So I'll explain the background to the Soprod caliber C125. It's based upon the Soprod caliber A10-2, which has been renamed by Soprod. The A10-2 is now known as the caliber M100. The A10-2 was a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss movement, and in terms of quality, I'll put it into perspective. The quality of the A10-2 is equal quality to an ETA 2893-2, and the architecture of the caliber C125 is very similar to both the A10-2 and also the ETA 2893-2. So it's an excellent movement. This is the Elabor grade of C125, so it's the standard grade, regulated in 5 positions. With regards to accuracy, this one is running consistently at plus 2 seconds per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Plus 2 is actually within cost chronometer limits of -4 to +6, so Maen deserve full credit because they are well regulating their Soprod caliber C125s. Plus 2 is outstanding, its chronometer accuracy, and as the first card showed, their movements are regulated in La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland, so they're coming from Soprod, but they are being regulated by Maen themselves in La Chaux-de-Fonds. So very well regulated movements, and correct choice. The Soprod C125 is equal quality to the ETA 2893-2. They could have used the Solita SW330 as an alternative GMT caliber, but really there's no discernible difference. They are all equal quality. The SW330, the ETA 2893-2, and the Soprod caliber C125, they're all equal quality, quality control, finishing, materials, and also accuracy. So +2, 42 hours, no negatives to it whatsoever, no reliability issues whatsoever with the C125. It is a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss caliber. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So this Hudson 38 GMT is available on pre-order for €999. Yes, it is excellent quality, and yes, it is excellent value at €999. They've made correct decision after correct decision, and I'm pleased to see refinements because this is based upon the Mark IV Hudson, but they have refined the case finishing and they've also refined the bezel finishing. With regards to the finishing, this really is Tudor Black Bay level. We're looking at €3,000 mid-tier level finishing. Flawless mirror polishing to the large bevel on the edge of the case, which marks the transition between the brush satin finishing to the tops of the lugs and the longitudinal brush satin finishing to the flanks, which is perfection personified. Beautiful luster to the flanks. So really there's no discernible difference between the quality of the finishing to the bezel, the head of the piece, the case back, the bracelet and the clasp, and a Black Bay 58 or a Black Bay GMT. That is the level of finishing, €3,000 price point finishing. So to get that level of finishing at €1,000 is exceptional. There is only one negative to the piece and one area I'd like to see Maen refine or improve upon, and that is the X1 Superluminova used on the hands. On the applied indices, as I've detailed, it's good enough, but I would like to see 5 to 6 layers applied on the mirror polished hands to improve the performance of the X1. Alternatively, they could change to using BGW9, which would be brighter blue, and I think that would be a notable enhancement. Other than that, the bezel execution is 10 out of 10, screw down crown execution is 10 out of 10, and the specification is absolutely loaded because this is 300 metres. They could have used the cost-cutting measure of making it 100 metres. It's a GMT piece, not a dive piece, or 200 metres, but this is 300 metres. It's very strong specification. Clear AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal. And the screw down crown and bezel really are outstanding. They are Black Bay 58 level in terms of smoothness and refinement. So excellent quality, excellent value. I'm going to highly recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Maen Hudson 38 GMT, reference AGM 1.02. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.